The legends spoke of a warship that defied all logic. A vessel whispered about in the dark corridors of military strategy meetings, scoffed at by alien tacticians, and dismissed as mere human myth. It was said to be faster than light itself, impervious to enemy fire, and capable of appearing where no fleet had dared venture. They called it the Phantom of Earth, a warship born of human imagination, a fairy tale meant to keep humanity hopeful in its darkest hours. But then, in the middle of the Battle of Orion's Maw, it appeared. The Galactic Dominion, a vast empire of alien warlords, had spent decades grinding humanity down. Earth's colonies were in ruins, its fleets scattered, its military leaders desperate. The Dominion's flagship, Gorath Prime, led 1,000 ships against the last remnants of human resistance, near the dying red star of Orion's Maw. Admiral Zorveth of the Dominion stood on his command deck, watching the battle unfold through the holographic projections. It was another slaughter. The human fleet, outgunned and outnumbered, was breaking apart like glass under a hammer. And then, without warning, the Dominion's long-range scanners flared with an impossible reading. A ship, no, a ghost, emerged from nowhere, directly in the middle of the Dominion's formation. Its black hull gleamed like the void itself, absorbing every scan, every sensor pulse. It moved in ways that defied physics, phasing in and out of their detection fields like a mirage in space. One moment, it was behind their front line. The next, it was within their command formation. The Dominion's ships opened fire in a blind panic, but their beams and missiles passed through the ghostly warship as if it were nothing more than a dream. And then it struck. A single burst of energy lashed out, not in a straight beam, but in a spiraling arc that slithered through space like a living thing. The Dominion's first battleship, Vurak's Claw, exploded into a fiery bloom, its shields utterly useless. The energy pulse ricocheted from ship to ship, carving through hulls, igniting reactors, leaving devastation in its wake. Zorveth staggered back, his heart's pounding. "Impossible," he hissed. Across the human fleet, desperate soldiers and commanders stared at their screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. For years, they had heard whispers of the Phantom of Earth, the ship of legend. But none had believed it real. Captain Elias Drake sat in his battered command chair, eyes wide as he stared at the phantom ship now dancing through the Dominion's fleet. "I thought it was just a story," he muttered. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vega, whispered, "Apparently, so did they." The battle was no longer a massacre of humans, it was a massacre of the Dominion. The ghost ship moved like a specter of death, striking and vanishing, reappearing where no ship should be. One by one, the Dominion's mighty vessels were torn apart, until even Gorath Prime itself shuddered under its invisible wrath. Admiral Zorveth made the only choice he could. He screamed the retreat order. The Dominion, once confident in its victory, fled in terror. And in the silent, shattered remains of Orion's Maw, the ghost ship lingered for just a moment longer. As the last Dominion ships vanished into the void, it flickered once, and then was gone. Captain Drake exhaled, barely realizing he had been holding his breath. The battle was over, and humanity had won. But one question remained. Where had the Phantom of Earth come from? And where had it gone? The war was not over yet. But for the first time in decades, the Dominion knew fear. The journey back to Earth was filled with uneasy silence. The battle should have been a victory worth celebrating, yet every officer aboard the HSS Valor felt the same gnawing uncertainty. What had they just witnessed? What was the Phantom of Earth? And if it was truly on their side, why did it remain hidden? Captain Elias Drake sat in the war room, staring at the holographic projections of the battle. The Dominion's fleet had been torn apart as if by an invisible predator. Their best weapons had failed. Their strongest ships had crumbled. But how? A knock at the door snapped him from his thoughts. Lieutenant Vega stepped inside, her face set in grim determination. "Sir," she said, "Admiral Kepler is requesting an immediate debrief upon arrival." Drake exhaled. Of course he is. Kepler was Earth's highest-ranking military official, a hardened veteran who had seen humanity pushed to the brink time and time again. If anyone would demand answers, it was him. Vega hesitated. "Sir, there's something else." Drake frowned. "What is it?" She stepped forward, lowering her voice. "We recovered a single uncorrupted data file from the battle. It's incomplete, but—" She pulled up a holopad and turned it toward him. Drake leaned forward. The screen displayed a fragment of distorted footage. Grainy, chaotic, filled with static. But then, for the briefest of moments, it became clear. A ship. A massive ship. Not human. Not Dominion. Something else entirely. Its surface was blacker than the void itself, shifting like liquid metal, and its form was never entirely still. But one thing stood out. Etched into its hull, barely visible, was a single ancient symbol. Drake's breath caught in his throat. It was an Earth symbol. "Where did this come from?" he whispered. Vega's voice was tight. "It was buried deep in our system logs, almost like it wanted us to find it." A cold shiver ran down Drake's spine. That symbol, it was old. Older than Earth's interstellar age. It had been seen in the ruins of Mars, in deep-sea wrecks on Earth, in the whispered myths of long-dead civilizations. It was a mark of something lost to time, something that should not exist. The Phantom of Earth wasn't just some secret weapon. It was something far older, and it had just revealed itself. As the HSS Valor sped toward Earth, Drake knew one thing. Whatever had saved them at Orion's Maw, it had its own purpose. And they were about to find out what it was. Earth loomed in the distance, a shining blue beacon of humanity's last refuge. The HSS Valor cut through the void, escorted by two other battle-worn cruisers that had barely survived Orion's Maw. But despite their return, there were no cheers, no celebrations. Captain Elias Drake stood rigid on the bridge, eyes locked on the incoming transmission from Earth's High Command. The moment they entered orbit, Admiral Kepler's stern face appeared on the main display. His silver hair was cropped short, his uniform pressed to perfection, but there was no mistaking the tension in his jaw. "Captain Drake," Kepler said without preamble. "You're 2 hours late." Drake crossed his arms. "We had to make sure we weren't being followed, sir." Kepler's eyes narrowed. "And? Were you?" Drake hesitated, then shook his head. "Not by anything we could detect." Kepler leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "We need to talk, face to face. I want you and your senior officers in War Room Alpha in 30 minutes. The transmission cut before Drake could respond. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Vega muttered beside him. "He's in a fantastic mood." Drake sighed. "Let's not keep him waiting." 30 minutes later, Drake, Vega, and Chief Engineer Ramos stood in the war room beneath Earth's military headquarters. The room was dim, lit only by the glowing holographic table in the center. Around it stood Admiral Kepler and 3 other high-ranking officers. "Sit," Kepler ordered. Drake and his officers obeyed. Kepler wasted no time. "Tell me exactly what happened at Orion's Maw." Drake recounted the battle in detail. The hopeless odds, the sudden appearance of the ghost ship, its impossible movements, the devastating destruction it had unleashed upon the Dominion fleet. When he finished, Kepler's expression was unreadable. "You're telling me the Phantom of Earth is real?" Drake nodded. "And it isn't just real, it's something else, something we don't understand." He slid the holopad across the table, displaying the recovered image of the strange ship with the Earth symbol etched into its hull. Kepler's jaw tightened. He stared at the symbol for several long moments before finally saying, "This isn't the first time we've seen this." Drake's eyes widened. "What?" Kepler tapped a command into the table. Multiple images appeared, ancient carvings from lost human civilizations, faded blueprints from black-budget military projects, and distorted footage of something lurking in deep space, long before Earth had even left its solar system. "That symbol," Kepler said grimly, "has been appearing throughout human history. Long before we had the technology to reach the stars." Vega whispered, "Then, what the hell is this thing?" Kepler took a deep breath, as if considering whether to speak. Finally, he said, "There was a project." Project Revenant Drake sat up straighter. "I've never heard of it." "You wouldn't have," Kepler said. "It was buried before you were even born." He pressed another command. A classified document flickered to life in the holographic display. The text was filled with redacted sections, but what was left sent chills through Drake's spine. Project Revenant. Objective, unknown origin, unknown status, terminated, inconclusive. Below the text was a grainy image of a massive structure being built on Earth centuries ago. A warship, hidden beneath the Arctic ice, buried before humanity had even discovered faster-than-light travel. "We didn't build the Phantom of Earth," Kepler said. "We found it." A heavy silence filled the room. Drake finally spoke. "And you're just telling us this now?" Kepler gave him a hard look. "Because until today we thought it was dead." Drake stared at the image, his mind racing. If humanity hadn't built the Phantom, then who had? And more importantly, why had it returned now? Then the alarms blared. A voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified object inbound. Extreme velocity. It's static." Drake and the officers bolted for the nearest screen. In orbit, descending toward Earth, was the Phantom of Earth. And this time, it wasn't alone. The war room erupted into chaos. Officers scrambled to their stations. Analysts barked orders into comms, and the holographic display filled with red warning markers. Captain Elias Drake barely heard any of it. His eyes were locked on the live orbital feed. The Phantom of Earth loomed above the planet, its black, shifting form blotting out stars as it descended. But that wasn't what sent ice through his veins. It was the others. 5 smaller ships, sleek, unnatural, with the same liquid metal hull, had appeared alongside it. Their formations were too precise, their movements eerily synchronized. Drake turned to Admiral Kepler. "You said this thing was buried on Earth." Kepler's face was pale. "It was." "Then what the hell are they?" Drake demanded, pointing at the unknown ships. Kepler didn't answer. The main comms officer's voice crackled through the speakers. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Phantom." The room fell silent. "Put it through," Kepler said. The holographic display flickered. A deep, distorted voice, neither fully human nor alien, filled the room. "We have returned." Drake clenched his fists. "Who are you?" A pause. Then, "We are the Forgotten." The word sent a chill through every officer present. Kepler leaned forward. "You fought for us at Orion's Maw. Why? What do you want?" The voice remained eerily calm. "It was not your war to lose." Drake narrowed his eyes. "And what war is ours?" The display changed. The view of Earth was replaced by a star map, one stretching far beyond known human space. Then, red markers began appearing. Hundreds, thousands, a storm of hostile signatures. They are coming. Kepler's breath hitched. Who? The voice whispered. The ones who erased us. The war room fell deathly still. Drake exchanged a look with Vega. The same thought passed between them. The Dominion had been humanity's greatest enemy for decades. But now, it seemed, they were nothing more than a prelude, and whatever was coming next, it had once been powerful enough to wipe an entire species from history. The Phantom of Earth hadn't appeared to save humanity. It had returned to prepare them. The war room remained eerily silent as the weight of the revelation settled over the officers. The Phantom of Earth had spoken. They are coming. Captain Elias Drake stared at the star map filled with hostile red markers. The Dominion had nearly wiped out humanity on its own, so who or what could be worse? Admiral Kepler's voice was steady, but there was a barely concealed edge of fear beneath it. Clarify, who erased you? The Phantom's response was immediate. The architects. A hush fell over the room. Kepler exchanged a glance with his intelligence officer, but no recognition flickered across anyone's face. We have no records of such a species. The Phantom's voice rumbled. You were not meant to. Drake's mind raced. You're saying they erased you, and then erased the memory of you? A pause. Correct. The officers around the room shifted uneasily. If this was true, they weren't just dealing with conquerors, they were dealing with something that could rewrite history itself. Lieutenant Vega leaned forward. Why now? If these architects destroyed you, why haven't they come for us before? The Phantom hesitated. They left you unshaped. You were small, weak, unworthy of correction. Drake exhaled slowly. Until now. Humanity had finally grown beyond what the architects considered insignificant, and now they were coming to fix their mistake. Kepler's eyes hardened. How much time do we have? Uncertain. Their reach is vast, their return inevitable. A new kind of silence fell. Not shock, not fear. A cold, calculating realization. This was no longer a war for survival. It was a war against something so old, so powerful, that it had already erased an entire civilization. Drake squared his shoulders. Then we need to fight. Kepler nodded. Agreed. But we don't know their weapons, their numbers, their technology. We're fighting ghosts. The Phantom's voice hummed, almost amused. Not alone. A new image appeared in the holographic display. Deep space coordinates. There are others. Drake leaned in. Other what? Survivors. The officers exchanged startled looks. You mean, there are others like you? Vega asked. Pieces of the forgotten remain, scattered, hiding, waiting. Drake felt his pulse quicken. Humanity wasn't alone in this fight. If these forgotten could be found, if they could be awakened, there might still be a chance. Kepler stared at the map, his expression unreadable. Finally, he turned to Drake. You wanted a war, Captain? Congratulations. You've got one. Drake smirked. Then let's wake the dead. With that, the HSS Valor prepared to set out once more. Because somewhere in the darkness of space, hidden in the ruins of history, the last remnants of a war long forgotten were waiting. The HSS Valor launched into the void, pushing beyond the edges of human-explored space. They weren't alone. 4 other warships, the last of humanity's elite fleet, followed in formation. Their mission was simple: find the survivors, awaken the forgotten, prepare for war. Captain Elias Drake stood at the command deck, staring at the rapidly approaching jump point. The Phantom of Earth had provided coordinates. Deep in the uncharted regions of the galaxy, past Dominion-controlled space, in a sector long believed to be empty. But something was out there. Lieutenant Vega sat beside him, running calculations. "Jump in 3 minutes, Captain." Drake nodded. "Any changes to the readings?" She hesitated. Still nothing. No distress signals, no energy spikes. If something's there, it's hiding. Drake exhaled. He turned towards the main holodisplay, where a map of their path flickered with shifting data streams. Kepler's voice crackled over the comms from Earth. "Valor, confirm status before jump." Drake tapped his console. "All systems green, Admiral. We're ready." A pause. Then, "Godspeed." The connection cut. Vega counted down. 3, 2, 1. The ship lurched as it tore through the jump gate, space folding around them. For a split second, Drake swore he saw something, an outline, a vast, shadowy form lurking in the folds of reality itself. Then they re-emerged. Silence. Darkness. And then, "Captain," Vega whispered, "you need to see this." Drake turned to the viewport. His breath caught. The sector wasn't empty. It was filled with wreckage. Massive ships, larger than anything humanity had ever built, drifted silently, their hulls scorched, their forms shattered. Some bore markings eerily similar to the Phantom's, while others were alien beyond recognition. It wasn't just debris. It was a graveyard. Chief Engineer Ramos muttered, "This isn't a battlefield. It's a tomb." Drake clenched his fists. "Scan everything. Look for survivors." The ships spread out, weaving through the floating ruins. Then the sensors flared. Vega sat up straight. "Sir, we've got a signal." Drake's pulse quickened. "Where?" She tapped furiously at her console. "Beneath us. Buried under one of the wrecks." A distorted, flickering message came through. "They left us. Buried. So cold." Drake's stomach turned. Someone, or something, was still alive. And they had been waiting a long time. The bridge of the HSS Valor was tense, every officer frozen as the broken transmission crackled through the speakers. "They left us. Buried. So cold." Captain Elias Drake felt his heartbeat hammer in his chest. Whoever, or whatever, was down there had been waiting for an eternity. Lieutenant Vega ran her fingers across the console, struggling to clean up the signal. "Sir, it's weak. Old tech. The frequency is fluctuating like it's barely holding together." Drake made his decision. "Get me a visual." The holodisplay flickered as the ship's scanners focused beneath the debris field. Then, for the first time, they saw it. A ship, larger than anything in the human fleet, older than any Dominion warship, lay entombed beneath layers of wreckage. Its hull was fractured but intact, its black surface eerily similar to the Phantom of Earth. And then the impossible happened. The ship moved. A pulse of energy flickered from its core, weak and sputtering, like a dying breath gasping for air. Vega sucked in a sharp breath. "Sir, it's still alive." Drake turned to Chief Engineer Ramos. "Can we pull it out?" Ramos rubbed his chin, eyes darting across the readings. "If we clear the debris? Maybe. But if it's still functional, we don't know how it'll react." Drake didn't hesitate. "Then let's wake it up." The Valor's thrusters roared to life, and the accompanying fleet moved in. Tractor beams locked onto the massive wreck, slowly peeling away the debris that had entombed it for centuries. As the last piece drifted free, a deep, shuddering groan echoed through space. Then, the ship's lights flickered on. Drake's breath caught. The glow was dim, pulsing, almost organic. And then the transmission came through again, clearer this time. "You are late." Vega turned sharply toward Drake. "It knows us." The realization sent chills down his spine. The Phantom of Earth had led them here. To this. Drake swallowed hard and leaned forward. "This is Captain Elias Drake of the HSS Valor. Who am I speaking to?" A pause. Then the voice came, smooth and ancient, yet undeniably human. "I was once called Commander Orion." Silence. Every officer on the bridge exchanged stunned glances. Drake's throat went dry. The name, Orion, was legendary. One of Earth's first deep space captains. A pioneer. A man who had vanished over 300 years ago on an expedition beyond mapped space. But that was impossible. He should have been dead. Drake steadied his voice. "Commander Orion, you've been missing for centuries. How are you still alive?" The voice hummed through the speakers, heavy with something between sorrow and certainty. "Because we were never allowed to die." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Before Drake could respond, the ship's systems roared fully to life. The black hull shifted, the technology warping and reforming itself like liquid steel. And then, in the depths of the wreck, something else woke up. Alarms blared. Vega's voice shook. "Sir, something else is coming online inside that ship." Drake turned back to the viewport, just as a second voice broke through the transmission. Not human. Not friendly. "We have been found. The architects will come." Drake felt his stomach drop. They weren't the only ones who had just woken up. The bridge of the HSS Valor fell into stunned silence. Captain Elias Drake gripped the edge of his console as Commander Orion's voice echoed through the speakers, laced with ancient sorrow. "Because we were never allowed to die." The lights on Orion's ship pulsed rhythmically, a heartbeat of something impossibly old and burdened by memories. Lieutenant Vega's voice broke the silence. "Captain, if that's really Commander Orion, then the architects have been here for centuries, watching, waiting." Drake nodded, his eyes locked on the colossal, shifting form of Orion's vessel. It was changing, its black hull undulating like liquid metal. Something ancient was waking up inside. He activated the comms. "Orion, if the architects are coming, we need to know how to fight them. What are they?" A long pause. Then Orion's voice came back, hollow and haunted. "They are the first, the makers of order. They weave reality to their design. When we grew beyond their vision, they erased us, and made you." The revelation hit Drake like a physical blow. Humanity was an accident, a remnant left behind by ancient conquerors. Vega whispered, "We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for existence." Alarms blared across the bridge. Chief Engineer Ramos shouted, "Captain, energy spikes across the wreckage field. Multiple signatures, high magnitude." Drake looked out at the void, his blood running cold. The debris around Orion's ship was moving. Hulls cracked, shattered pieces reassembling, ancient warships reforming as dark energy surged through them. Vega's face turned pale. "They're rebuilding themselves." The ships powered up, ominous red lights igniting along their spines, weapons systems locking onto the human fleet. Orion's voice came again, weak and distant. "The Guardians, left to protect the tomb. They are the first line of defense." Drake's jaw clenched. "And the second?" "The architects." The stars flickered. Space itself seemed to ripple, a tear forming in the fabric of reality. Shapes emerged, impossibly vast and incomprehensible, like shadows cast by ancient gods. Their forms defied geometry, shifting and warping, bending light around them. The architects had arrived. Admiral Kepler's voice came through the comms, urgent and grim. "Drake, get your fleet out of there, now!" Drake's eyes burned with defiance. "Negative, Admiral. If we run now, they'll follow us home. This ends here." He turned to his crew. "All ships, engage the Guardians. Protect Orion's vessel. We're waking up the forgotten." The Valor's weapons roared to life, blazing beams tearing through the darkness. The rest of the fleet followed, forming a protective perimeter around Orion's ship. But the Guardians were relentless. Their ancient technology shrugged off human firepower, weapons pulsing with energies that bent space. Human ships exploded, brilliant flashes against the black void. Orion's ship continued to shift, panels opening to reveal massive conduits of light. Power surged through the ancient vessel, its core igniting with a blinding glow. Drake's console flared with warnings. Vega shouted, "Energy output off the scale! It's rewriting itself!" The ship was transforming, reshaping into a weapon from a forgotten war. Orion's voice was steadier now, infused with purpose. "They erased us, but they could not destroy us. We were built to defy them." The conduits fired, beams of pure reality-warping energy slicing through the Guardians. Space twisted around the blasts, the ancient constructs shattering as existence itself rejected them. But the architects watched, unmoved. Their forms shifted, their shadows growing. One reached out, a tendril of darkness that engulfed 2 human warships. They folded in on themselves, collapsing into singularities and winking out of existence. Drake's heart raced. They weren't just powerful, they controlled the fabric of space and time. Orion's voice came again, urgent. "You cannot fight them here. They are rooted to this reality. We must sever their connection." Drake's eyes widened. "How?" Orion's ship shuddered, more ancient plates falling away, revealing a massive gate at its core. "Through the source, to the heart of the architect's domain, to the place where they reshape worlds." The gate powered up, spiraling vortexes of energy coalescing at its center. The architects reacted, shifting, their tendrils reaching out to stop it. Drake barked the order. "All ships, defend Orion, buy him time!" The human fleet surged, fighting with desperation. Ship after ship fell, but the architects' attacks slowed, the vortex drawing their energy toward it. Orion's voice was firm, resolute. "I will take us there, but once inside you must destroy the anchor, sever them from our universe." Drake hesitated. "And what happens to you?" A pause, then, "We were never meant to exist." "Once the anchor is gone, so are we." The weight of it crushed Drake's chest. Orion and his people were remnants, echoes of a timeline erased. But they were humanity's only hope. Drake stood tall. "Then let's finish this." The gate opened, engulfing the Valor and the remaining fleet. The universe bent, reality folding in on itself as they plunged through the vortex. On the other side, they found it, a realm of pure creation, shifting matter and energy woven by cosmic architects. At its center, a colossal structure, pulsing with power. The anchor. The architects descended, their forms unraveling into streams of code and light. Twisting through the realm, they attacked, warping space, shattering ships with a thought. Drake fought through the chaos, pushing the Valor toward the anchor. "Vega, target the core, full power!" The ship's weapons overloaded, energy screaming as they fired everything they had. The anchor shuddered, cracks forming as the realm itself trembled. Orion's ship surged forward, its own power focused into a final, devastating blast. For those erased, for those forgotten. The beam struck the anchor. Reality shattered. The architects howled, their forms breaking apart, cascading into nothingness. The realm collapsed, folding inward. As the vortex pulled them out, Drake caught one last glimpse of Orion's ship, standing resolute against the end of existence. Then it was gone. The Valor emerged back into real space, the void eerily quiet. The wreckage was gone, the Guardians dissolved. The architects were no more, but so were the forgotten. Vega whispered, "He did it. He saved us." Drake looked out into the darkness, the weight of sacrifice heavy on his shoulders. Number they saved themselves. He stood straight, his voice firm. And we will remember them. The HSS Valor turned toward Earth, the stars silent witnesses to the end of a war that had erased itself from time. But history would remember the forgotten, and humanity would never be unshaped again.